We are back for Orange is the New Black, Season 5, Episode 9. It is The Tightening, and Episode 10, The Reverse Midas Touch, coming right up.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, yeah. The animal. Trap, trap, trap till the cage is full. The cage is full, the day is new. And everyone's waiting on you. And you've got time. Oh my god, I gasped for air. Wait, one thing I will say about that, I love/hate the new skip intro feature on Netflix. I love it, but for this purpose, sometimes I'm like, oh no, I don't know the words in it.
My Netflix, it has not updated for that feature, I guess.
What?
Yeah,
it's really small.
But it's a good one. And everyone, we are back for Orange is the New Black, Season 5, Episode 9 and 10. And before we get started, I am Scott Moore. You can find me on Twitter at SMAN80. That's SMAN80. And you can also find us on social media, hashtag OITNBABTV. And to my left, camera right.
Hey guys, I'm Sterling Cates. You can find me at Sterling Cates. Happy to be back.
Oh yeah, I'm April Whisenhant, and y'all can find me everywhere at April Whisenhant.
Yay! Yeah, we finally got you ladies back. You've been traveling all over the world. And,
I miss you so much.
We missed you too.
Y'all,
so.
I've hated missing so much because there's just so much
There's
that
so
I
much
wanted to
going
talk
on.
about.
Just very excited to be back to talk about these two episodes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I know. We're
In
so glad that you're
particular,
back because we definitely missed you, but glad you had some really great travels all over the world. But yeah, what were your overall thoughts with 9 and 10?
Intense, obviously, but this show has like really gone there with the intensity and with the like over the top violence and whatever it may be at certain points. But this is like, I think, farther than they've ever gone before with actual physical violence that you see.
Okay, so I like scary movies in general. Like I like feeling scared, and I definitely felt very scared throughout 9 and 10, especially in the torture scenes and the whole Piscatella stuff, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But they mix like the entertaining value with like some scary scenes where you see like it's not what you think it is, but they build it up to be something, and it's not that. Versus like actual things that are horrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have more specific thoughts. I have a few complaints as well, but we can get into that later.
Yeah,
I pull up a chat.
Oh yes, definitely. Let's definitely, please. I will kind of go on what you were saying too, Sterling. Is that I felt that it was sort of a little campy. Some of the horror moments.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it was a little too over the top. And I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me, but I also thought that Piscatella in 9 and 10, although the torture scenes were traumatic and very upsetting to watch, which we'll get into in more detail, I thought his character and what was going on was a little bit too over the top. You know, it was, and I get it's entertainment and it's a show at the end of the day and we're being entertained, but I almost felt like from what the show normally is, it was almost like, okay, this is not, now we're getting out of too unbelievable territory and it's a little too
What did
campy.
you think was unbelievable?
Too campy. I thought his character ended up being a little bit too campy and too not realistic enough. And when we go into his backstory in 10, which we'll get into, and then seeing sort of the reasons what he did, it doesn't really equate to me of why he's doing what he's doing now.
Yes,
that makes sense.
This particular scene, maybe we'll find out in the last 3 episodes what the reason was. But for me, watching as a viewer, I'm like, what he did was totally separate reasons in his backstory to why he's behaving the way he is now, and it's so over the top to the point where it's not even believable to me at this point.
I completely agree with that.
So
I feel like what he was doing with Red, and obviously we'll get into that later, but what he was doing in the women's prison didn't really connect for me with his backstory. Right. But more than that, I feel like they were just going for the shock value of what he was doing.
Yeah, that's what was so
instead
over the top.
of like I didn't care about his backstory at that point because I was like, this doesn't make me feel bad for him.
No.
It doesn't make me understand him. So yeah, that was what when I said I had a few problems.
Yeah, that was my biggest complaint with that. Is that
and we needed that backstory episodes ago. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And not after what's happening. Yeah, I don't know.
Or I just want to see more of a connection as to some type of, I don't know, psychological some woman figure that did something to him that made him somehow. That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't connect with it from the backstory, and I just felt like it was so extreme.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get into that later because I have more things.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh, many things to say.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there, but just
no.
No one's in
Can
the
we
chat
pull
right
up
now?
the chat on the screen? Possibly. I was trying to pull it up on my phone, but I couldn't get it.
Yeah,
Please?
sometimes, and you know, last couple weeks it's been a little quiet, so hopefully we'll get some people now that you ladies are back. They'll be excited and they'll be in the chat, especially to help us out when we get to some of the details of the characters and everything.
Right.
But you know, I loved episode 9 because I love seeing Red's backstory.
Yes.
Like her way backstory, like going back to 1977 and young Red in Russia, which we have not seen before after all of these seasons. We've seen a lot of her other backstories with her family life and in New York and sort of what their business was all about, but more of the modern day, you know, slight past. This time we really got to know her roots, and to me that did a better job connecting
Absolutely.
with her, you know, which the rest of the girls were thinking, oh, she's paranoid, and but it had more of a connection to me for what was going on with her thinking Piscatella was in there when everyone else wasn't believing because of what she went through, you know, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, was it Morello that said people don't just disappear out of thin air? But when in Red's background, yes, they did.
They did.
In Russia, they did disappear out of thin air. So
exactly.
Yeah, she definitely. That was a good connection.
It was
for
a
that storyline.
great connection to that storyline, and also making us think, okay, yes, because we're thinking, oh yeah, she's so paranoid, and she's, you know, coming off of speed, and she's just out of her gourd from that. And you could see how the women there would think, of course, like, she's crazy. Like, nobody's disappearing. And then the fact that she knew and realized that from experience was a better connection to me than in 10 with Piscatella. But anyways, I loved it. I loved that whole scene. I thought, you know, I was also thinking, because I do line producing, I'm like, oh, that has been expensive. And here they are, like, doing all the different set pieces and the wardrobe and everything else. So I thought they did a great job with that. You know, and I love again Red's lines. I think the writers do a great job giving her some really great lines. Like she said, my hot flashes are having hot flashes. And I thought they did a great job connecting back to her, you know, working in the factory, the grueling job that they had back there, the way that she didn't have any freedom, and what they tried to do to, you know, kind of go behind the scenes and do what they could to get away with it, with the denim making and the jeans and the Western wear. And
I like that it showed like where her leadership side kind of comes from.
Exactly.
Because the backstory that we've gotten of her before is just like, oh, this woman who wanted to be a part of this group and, you know, all the other stuff that she did, of course. But I like that it showed kind of the beginnings of her really like standing up for something. Yeah. Because that's clearly where she gets that from.
Exactly. And that she was powerful and doesn't back down. And I thought it was a really great positive depiction of her and her background,
and just fighting the system by making some jeans.
There you
go.
Which
you know, you see that carrying over 40 years later, and she's doing that now. You know, still continuing that sort of bucking the status quo, which I thought she was great at. And we're seeing that glow. I call her Glow, but Gloria, I call her like we're best friends,
Glow,
you know. Glow.
We're besties to go way back.
We're besties.
Five
Glow,
seasons,
you know. I've done it forever. But I love that, you know, she's having her own motivations now because she wants to get out to see her son. So now she's trying to convince, calling the warden directly, which was ballsy.
Yeah, true.
No better word for that at that point. She calls him directly. She's basically, you know, asking how she could make it happen to where she could get the ability to have furlough to see her very sick son in ICU. And, you know, the warden's basically like, well, you know, you've got to deal with your criminal peer group and have the hostages released. And so in this particular episode, she's trying very hard to get in, to find a way to get the hostages released. And it kind of goes back to the previous episodes. You know, we were talking about the right or wrong, and is it better to, you know, kill one person if you know you're saving them versus letting that one person live knowing that 5 other people are going to be killed. It's sort of that same mentality where she's thinking, well, if I release these hostages and that weakens our stance for our demands, but if I get a chance to see my son, who in her sense maybe is dying and she doesn't know, what's the right thing to do? And I think almost anyone in her position, anyone would do what she's doing to try to go out and see their child.
As a mother who's, that I think absolutely she's doing what any mother would do. But it is interesting to see how the different prisoners they're either in it for the group or they're in it for themselves. And each storyline some version of that.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. And you see that in life in general. It's like, okay, what is someone going to do for the collective group versus what am I going to get out of this for that immediate, sort of pleasure or whatever it is.
I'm glad that they showed her struggling with it, though, and that it wasn't just like, oh, okay, let me just do this, because she has been a person that's like supported the group and
of course
has helped so many people throughout this entire series. Because honestly, I thought initially she would just be like, okay, no, I'm gonna release them and whatever. Which of course she had to have a little turmoil of it because there were 2 people guarding him, so it's not like it was just the easiest thing in the world for her to do. Right. But I'm glad that they didn't just make it be like, okay, this is a quick and easy decision. Even though, I mean, myself put in that situation, it probably would have been an easy decision.
No, April, but you're actually absolutely right, though, about that, is that they gave her more texture and that it wasn't such an easy thing. Because she has been like a mom figure to so many of these women, including Daya, and throughout the seasons. And so it is difficult because she knows for the greater good, these hostages are a bargaining tool and bargaining chip for what they want, and it's a hard thing. But then when she's got her son, she's gonna do what it takes to.
Aleda, like when she shows up outside of prison right after Daya has turned herself in, that whole scene was that was one of my favorite scenes of the episode. But then that conversation that Aleda and Gloria have about, I hope your whatever the line was that she said, like, I hope your son doesn't end up the way that you like are to him, and she's like, I believe that too. I was like crying a little bit or whatever, but you could see her like conflict with making the decision because she's going against her friends.
It's crazy to relate it to what she's going through in the sense of, because like Aleda's so mad at her, she's like, all you had to do was be like just as bad of a mother, not a worse mother, and it's like, I have my own stuff to go through, honey. Like, it's like so many people have put so much stuff on her, and she can't even like deal with her own real problems.
Right.
But I love that scene too.
No, I love it too, and I also see it from Aleda's side too, in the sense that even though it's not right, her thing was, I basically left you there when I left prison, meeting Gloria, to take care of Daya, and you basically failed at that responsibility from her perspective. Not saying it's right or not, but from her perspective, it was like you were supposed to be like the mom figure, keep an eye on her, make sure she stays out of trouble, and you did exactly the opposite in that sense, even though it really had nothing to do with her and it wasn't her fault.
Right.
But I can see from her side, but it was such a great, a scene, and I also love the fact that when she does bitch her out, that cop is like all into it.
He's like, I like it. You're magnificent, whatever he said.
Just going back to the problem. Like, you know what I mean? I was just like, of course.
Yeah. I was like,
she did look good, though.
She did, but she always does, and that's her and that's her style, because she knows she does, and she's gonna, she enjoys being able to kind of flaunt that. But
to work it.
Yeah, exactly. But that was one of my favorite scenes of this episode, without a doubt, besides the red flashback, which I think is probably my favorite of the season so far. I loved Frida's, though.
I was just about to say,
that was my
really
favorite,
like
because she had her own like theme song, which none of the other girls have had that. So I love that too, and it was so much fun.
And that's still playing out now.
It still plays out now, exactly. So I have to say it's close, but I think we learned so much about Red and just going back, and was so well done. But yeah, this episode, we see that the women are slowly but surely starting to disappear, and that's where we kind of get the creepy, what's going on? All of a sudden, people are just
the whole thing.
are going away, and at the same time, we're also having Fig still there as a negotiator and working with Tasty, which I also love that too, because it's giving Tasty a really good opportunity of showing, not only because to me, Tasty's also a natural leader, and we've always known that, and she's smart, and she knows what she's talking about. She can back up her arguments with facts and figures, and I absolutely love that. So I love that she's sort of taking on that team leader role during these negotiations with Fig, and she's not putting up with her crap either.
Right. And she's not backing down. Like,
no,
I love Tasty. These 2 episodes, I was like cheering
amazing
for her from behind the computer screen.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of course, I'm like 100% team Tasty, but I liked the dynamic between her and Fig. Like, I like that Fig isn't like, oh no, like kind of almost scared like the other people were, or back down a little. I love that she's like, well, this is happening. Well, a guard was just chopped in your garden 4 days ago, or whatever.
One of my favorite lines in this episode was when, I think it was this episode, correct me if I'm wrong, but was when Tasty goes, I think it's to get Caputo out of poo, and
Cindy's
like, so how's life outside of prison? And then Vic's like, well, we have these things that we can look at when we want to leave a conversation. And I was like, I'm going to use that in my real life.
That is so good. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Hello, how many people do you know are sitting there doing that?
She's like, okay, well, I'm just going to use the bathroom.
Yeah, I love that.
That was a great line.
So
yes, but that was the line where he does come in to help them out. And it kind of goes back to some of the previous seasons where you saw him being a creep.
Right.
And then you see him like, okay, he kind of does care for them and he does want to do what's in their best interest. And I still always have that conflict. And I know that that's sort of what the writers are doing. Because then they kind of bring him back where he's in his boxers and, you know, kind of grungy. And you're like, oh, there's the kind of
he's
creepy...
in that, though, because of them.
Of course. But you see that and it kind of brings you back to that, like, oh, that's the creepy Caputo. And then, you know, he's kind of disheveled and everything. But there he is, again, trying to do what's best. And the whole tension with him and Fig was so funny.
And was the comment she made about his boxers and he responded, does that mean she gave him the boxers?
She gave him
I was like, oh no, this is so creepy.
Of course he's wearing those.
Of course he's wearing those.
Right, exactly.
Boxers. Too perfect. I mean, that's so funny.
Their sexual attention is something real, though. And it's a lot stronger. Or I almost like it more than him and, of course, I'm going to blank on Linda.
Oh, with Linda. Yeah, well, that's... Yeah.
I love when she like walks up and she's like, please, do you want me to say I'm sorry? I can't help it. Your singing was terrible. And he's like, yeah, she's a new transfer from the psych ward. Because she just like needs to go at this point. But
yeah, she was annoying. And it was funny that he just sort of got rid of her because she was trying to come in and kind of ruin what he was trying to work on there.
What he was doing, yeah.
But yeah, you can see that tension between him and Fig. And that's what made it so funny. And
and it got even like more so in the next episode too.
It was fun, and Linda's responses were fun too.
Oh, Linda.
You know, and then we still have the Alex Piper thing, which I'm like, So I know we've had the discussion that like, oh, she's a little more, you know, a little more mature, or both of them are a little more mature, and I think that part of it is that we're not focused on them as much.
Right.
So instead of giving them any kind of drama, we're just sort of letting it play out, and sort of they are together, they're not, they are, but they are, and you know, it's just.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't hate it.
They get kidnapped in the shower.
Which is a horror. I mean, it's horrifying to get kidnapped, but like in the shower, and then he wraps them in the shower.
Yeah,
curtains.
they're like bound by the curtains.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That whole thing was just over the top, but we can get to that later. But because you just have the creepy scenes with all the characters, with him, but also with Angie with the phone call to Black Cindy. Like really, and then the girls, the makeup. I'm just
Maritza and Flora and
Flocka. With their whole singing they're trying to do for their video, and they're like making it look creepy. Like, yes, it was fun and cheeky, but it was also like, okay, come on. Like,
I think they did it because clearly they knew what the heaviness of that episode would be if they just had Piscatella like attacking people the whole time.
And they had to go to the other extreme, but it was like some of it, like especially with the Angie phone calls, like we really didn't need that. It could have just been like.
That's true.
Phone call and then it was dead when she picked it up or something, but here I am trying to write and produce it, but that's my own thing. But yeah, I loved going back to Linda and we'll get into more of her with 10 with Boo and all that, but I love the way that Caputo basically is like throwing her away in that sense.
Don't insult his singing. Which is why he's literally why he's mad at her, because she said he was a bad singer.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, she's in some serious trouble, like throughout the prison, obviously, because she doesn't know how to survive in those conditions that she set up.
Slash is in a full-on lesbian relationship now. So
yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, oh gosh, you picked the wrong person. To be in a prison relationship with. The one who's like the most serious. That's like, oh, I love you, baby. This is gonna last forever. I'm like, because it really is.
Yeah, exactly. Any other things before we move on to 10? Because we've got some time today, but I want to
the whole torture stuff was episode 9.
Well,
I think that
was
like
10. Everybody sort of gets pulled away. I mean, there's a lot of heavy stuff in 10 that I know we can go into. But
moving right along.
9 ends when Red enters the room, like the hostage room
for
the first time, because she finds the map in her cookbook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which also was a little bit like, okay, you know, when was it Hapakuka? I always forget how to say her name. Brings in the book, and then she opens it up, and then conveniently the map was in there. I was like, okay.
But wasn't the map from something earlier in the season?
From, what I was thinking was from Frida's map to her bunker.
But it was her map to the bunker because it leads to the bunker.
It leads to the bunker. Yeah. So she had put it in there, and that was it was sort of a clue as to like, oh, okay. So we knew, for me, that's how I knew there was going to be a connection.
Right.
Which we'll get into with 10.
Wait, so that just happened? It's a coincidence that Piscatella just happened to be holding them right at the point of like where the map was?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a coincidence that it's the entrance to the bunker.
It was the entrance to the bunker. That was the coincidence, but he had found the map, I guess, probably when,
Okay, so you're thinking he found the map and put it in there on purpose.
And put it in there because that's where he was putting all the women and the hostages were in that room.
That makes it seem like way too
I didn't think that he had any...
Oh, it was?
I didn't know if he had any involvement in it. Like, I thought that Frida put the thing in her cookbook.
Oh, you're right. That's what it was. To get her to go.
Come.
Right. And then she put it in there. It was just a coincidence. That's right.
And
It wasn't the other way around.
Coincidence
because that was the thing that was driving me crazy. I'm like, first of all, how would he know that she was going to open up the book?
Right.
And that it was going to be there?
Frida would know that she's going to open up the book. Right,
she's going to open up the book at some point. That's what I was saying. Like, that was the part that was driving me crazy. I'm like, this is so over the top.
And that's why
like,
Frida was like, well, I invited her, but I guess she's not
never
coming.
Saw her.
So it's like makes more, it's like
you're right.
coincidental
that was driving me nuts.
Yeah.
I was like, how does he know that she's going to open it up and it's the perfect map? And wouldn't he think something was weird about that? Because
But it's also not even in her possession.
No, it wasn't.
So,
that's why the whole thing was driving me nuts. I was like, this is so over the top. But of course, that makes sense because Frida had put it in the book because she knew, and she'd wondered why she hadn't showed up from the, and being like, she hasn't showed up, I invited her, and she did. And it just added to the paranoia because then Red found it and opened it up and was like, oh, because, she was out that whole episode with the frying pan, going through all the dark rooms.
Crazy. Yeah.
She really did. And that's why, like, Alex and Piper are like, what are you doing? And Nikki's like, you're crazy. And she's going through all the dark rooms. And then and that was the thing. She did, and I think that was this episode 9, right, where she found the blood from, what's her name, when the first one that got hit.
She found it at the very end of the episode.
Yes, but that was the first person, basically, the first woman that had gotten...
Right,
oh my gosh.
Flores, yes.
Of course, like right when she gets really cute.
Yes. So she was the first one. So she, at the end, found the blood. Was like, oh.
Something's wrong.
Something's definitely
I love that she, like, sniffed it and she's like, like she just knows.
I know, and I put in notes like she tastes blood, but like in quotes. Because I was like, she didn't actually taste it, but she knew that it was blood.
Yeah.
And it goes back to her kind of cohort in crime there, which I thought was great about this episode, the way they kind of tied it up from the beginning to the end, because it was the first one that got attacked, which was her kind of cohort in this whole Piscatella thing.
Right. Yeah.
And then at the end, it's her finding that blood and knowing that she was legitimately onto something, and she wasn't as crazy as she, I think, started thinking too. I really think at some point when all the women were like, oh no, you're paranoid, that by the end there she was thinking, oh, he's here, but maybe I'm being a little extreme. But of course, going back to the flashback of that, she realizes when her friend disappears that it's a legit thing, and that there is something to be said for that. So yeah.
I think the only other thing, just really quickly from episode 9 before we move on to 10, is the whole scene between Lorna and Suzanne, where Lorna brings her medication, and she basically tells Suzanne she doesn't need to be on her medication, which is probably not the best move in these conditions.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because you're right. I skimmed over that. She wanted, and at first she went all in, like trying to sort of be like, okay, I'm going to give her the pills, I'm going to keep her going. And then she saw her all tied up and was like,
with the makeup on, that was just, oh my gosh.
Well, she was just trying to make herself feel better, because she's like, oh, the world tells you you're crazy, but you're not crazy.
You're really not crazy.
Just like, don't let them hold you back.
Yeah, exactly. So then she's like, oh, you know what? You don't need this medicine anymore. You're
fine.
Like,
I love that Suzanne's like, no, I do.
Yeah, she's like, no,
I really do need that medicine.
I do.
Yeah, and she's like,
Yeah, and you could see like Lorna like struggling with that throughout the episode, because she like hid those pregnancy tests. She's like, oh, maybe I'm not pregnant, or I am, whatever. So it's, I thought that was interesting, but it was also a very small part of the episode.
But it was a very important part because
for next episode,
for the next episode, and and also I was like, how did she get the stuff on her face too?
That was from
Angie and what's her name?
But
they put it on her face.
But they left it on that much, because I remember.
You don't remember whenever they walked up to her and they're like, oh, I don't know what they said, but they were like messing with her because she's asking for them to set her free, and they're like, oh no, and then they literally like put powder and whatever.
Yeah, I remember that. I just didn't realize it was that dramatic, so I was like, wait, that seemed more dramatic than I remember it being.
They're on like their own little antics that are just absurd.
That are like insane right now.
Absurd.
But the funny thing was when Morella first walked up and didn't realize she was,
And-
bound. She's like,
tied.
oh yeah, you should, oh honey, you need to learn about contouring and everything.
Like she did that herself. Yeah, I just truly
I
can't.
was like
That's
cracking up about
hilarious.
that. It's like, you need to learn about contouring. I'm like, oh my god.
Hilarious.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in episode 10. So if there's not
Yeah.
anything else that you guys think of,
Let's
I'm
go
sure.
for it.
Because we,
Get
episode 10,
into
we're
it.
really getting into the stuff, and I love the opening is with Frida and the gals, and everyone's playing Pictionary down in the bunker.
No
and,
idea what's going on right above them.
No.
Right.
And you see intermittently they hear sounds like, oh, something's going on, and they start thinking like something's definitely going on. And obviously we start to see now Piscatella is like full on crazy, and in this episode we get the flashback, which we can go into.
Let's just start with that. I feel like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was like that. That was it explained why he did what he did, because in the sense for because they had talked about him killing an inmate.
Yeah.
Do you think it was that prisoner in the shower?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the prisoner in the shower.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's like this innocent young guard,
Yeah.
and he like falls in love with this inmate at the male prison, and then that said inmate gets attacked and it raped.
I'm
it
guessing.
seemed.
Yes.
And Piscatella retaliated by killing one of the people who did it in the shower
The main-
with the hot water.
sort of
But
the
then,
main
the other
leader
guy
there.
standing there is just as guilty too. He just let Piscatella be like, "Oh, I don't hear him screaming." I
Right.
mean, that was truly like to see that man in the shower.
Yeah, it was like that
going
torture.
nuts,
It was like one of the
that
things that
was
you do
insane.
from one of those fun houses or a haunted house, where you see the person being tortured, and it was horrible. But you see so many things that he did in this episode which were just so wrong. First of all, having a relationship with an inmate.
Well, yeah.
And then what he was trying to do while the rest of the inmates were gone and punishing them so he could have the alone time with him, and all the things he was doing even before then that were so on the line of what he should be doing in his job.
Absolutely.
But I kept wondering, I was like, where did it get to point to where he would have killed an inmate, in this male prison? What would have happened? And so we got that answer at least.
Yeah.
But then it still opened so many other questions in the overall behavior of what he's
doing now.
present
Yeah.
day.
Can I tell you something that helped me with this? So after I watched the episode twice, I was like, this still isn't connecting for me. I really don't understand it. So I Googled like episode 10, season 5, Orange is the New Black or whatever, and I found this interview that the actor did, whatever his name is. I wrote it down. It's like his last name is, his name's Brad William Henke, Henke.
That's it, yeah.
And so anyway, he did this interview where he talked about that scene specifically, and
Which scene? The scene at the end with
so
him in the
his
shower?
whole backstory.
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay, the whole piece
his
together.
whole backstory. So, you know how the inmate Wes he showed him the tattoo that he had gotten, and so Piscatella got the same tattoo
matching
or whatever,
tattoo.
matching. So in the interview, this was a deleted scene, but he's in the interview. He told the outlet that when Piscatella enters the room where Wes had just been beaten and finds him on the floor or whatever, he sees that his tattoo was fake, and it was like rubbed off. It
Wait,
wasn't
you
a real
mean
Wes's tattoo,
Wes's tattoo.
up for Piscatella was not
Oh, it
real.
was not real.
He was like being fake with him so that he could get that those benefits,
Special treatment kind of
special
thing,
treatment
yeah.
of being that whole relationship. When you see that the tattoo is fake, you know that the relationship was fake.
Yeah. Right.
And so the actor said that Piscatella sees that and has a reaction to it. So everything he does after that is him being heartbroken and him being feeling like he was
everyone
played,
yeah,
or
and everyone's
and
out to get her fake and out to get him
and never to let his guard down
Yeah,
or whatever.
okay.
But so for whatever reason, that was deleted from
Yeah.
the episode, and I played it back, and you can see there's like blue ink on
Yeah.
his wrist that they probably didn't think anyone would notice. He's probably not even supposed to tell people that,
Right.
But the actor said he was really disappointed that it was deleted.
Well, because that's actually a big piece to everything.
Right.
Because at first I was like, when I first watched the episode and I saw him with from the very beginning with the crossword puzzle and they first connected, I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be him that he killed somehow.
Yeah.
That he was going to be taken advantage of, and he was going to be so upset that or that one of the other inmates was going to come and he was going to kind of basically let him do that. So
Yeah.
I had watched and thought, oh, that was going to be him.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be turned around that way. Because
Right.
that's a big piece to, like, leave out.
Now, I don't know. Obviously, I haven't seen the last 3 episodes, so I don't know if something along those lines comes up later.
Right, and explains again
but
why
it helped me with these 2 episodes specifically, because I was like, okay, that makes more sense, but then why wouldn't they want me to know that? I might have just ruined it for myself. I don't know.
No.
What the whole time I kept thinking that that's what was going to happen. Like, oh, someone took advantage of him, so that's why he doesn't let anyone take advantage of him another way. But and so I assumed that, and then whenever we didn't see it, I was kind of like, oh, maybe we will still see it. But the only reason why I was assuming that we would still see it in some way is because now that I think maybe we won't see that, it's like, okay, so why did you kill the guy? Like, for a guy that, was faking a relationship with you that you most likely discovered then or whenever he discovers it, it's like you still felt the need to kill someone
to
over it.
let that guy be tortured.
That's why I think he clearly obviously that stuff ignited something in him, but he clearly was just dealing with like some kind of crazy underneath it.
Right.
Because you don't just I would almost be like, of course you're heartbroken that the person that you love, assumingly just got beaten, whatever happened to him. Of course. But then you discover that maybe it's a fake relationship, which I assumed we would discover at some point. It seems like, okay, maybe you would be like a little hurt by that person and not murder the person that just hurt them.
Yeah, and I just hope in these next 3 episodes that they connect it a little bit more to his behavior today.
Yeah.
And why he's so extreme with these women. And is it that same feeling of feeling like he's being betrayed because somehow, whatever it was with Red and
even that whole never let my guard down mentality, it does make sense to an extent with Red, but then it also doesn't connect back to the MCC agenda, and it also doesn't like connect with his hatred that he has for women.
That's what I'm saying. It's so intense that I'm hoping they explain it in these next 3 episodes. Some way that feels satisfying, because right now it just does not feel satisfying to me. It feels like this is too extreme.
Yeah.
There's no connection to it, and now he's becoming this campy, sort of over-the-top villain that doesn't really play into the larger picture of what's going on with such a smart, well-written show and a cast.
It's got to come together. I'm
hoping
the thing that doesn't make sense to me, though, still, and I know everyone said, like, back in the first few episodes that we would find out what the tattoo meant.
Yeah.
So he got that tattoo, and Red saw it and was shocked. So she has no idea. Like, why would she be shocked about it? Ooh,
because she found the ID, the badge that had the initials, West, whatever it was, West Driscoll.
Yeah.
The WD.
WD.
Oh.
And so when she saw WD,
that's why.
Probably.
Oh, I was thinking like maybe there's still more to come as far as like, because I didn't know she found it. I knew she found the paperwork of the person that he killed.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, maybe there is more to come.
I hope, because I feel like we're now getting into the meat of the season here, and we're gonna get the climax, and then so we're gonna have a lot going on. I think these next 3 episodes are gonna be very action packed.
Yeah.
But to this point, that's what disappointed me. That's the thing that disappointed me 9 and 10, is that I thought it was too campy, which I know they had to have a little comedic relief because they were dealing with such horrible sort of torture scenes. But then the other problem was, I don't see why he's that bad.
Yeah.
Where is this coming from? And that backstory didn't do it for me.
And I think what bothers me most is like he's going in there like completely rogue. He's not even like a part of the like jail system. He's just essentially this random dude in there torturing people.
Basically breaking in because he feels this is his prison now, and he's going to end this this riot. And now he's also instigated from feeling emasculated from earlier when they had the whole scene with Judy King and everybody on TV, and basically he knew that now these women were playing him because he thought he was communicating with Humps, and he really wasn't. So now he's like, I'm going in and I'm handling it myself. Like he's now feeling like he's above all of that, and he's going to go in and kind of get that back because he feels very emasculated from what was going on with the cops out there.
It just doesn't make sense to me, though. I get, not that I get the stuff that he did to Red, but I get why he's super pissed at Red. But then, like, what in you, like, what reason, how did you think this was going to be solved from you capturing, how many went, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women?
All those women, and basically
and torturing them,
bounding them and torturing them. It was
breaking Alex's arm.
Oh my God,
like,
it was so.
It's just insane. So how did you think? How did you think this was gonna go? Like, I mean, he says at one point he's like, "What? It's 5, 6 inmates' word against me. Like, of course they're gonna believe me, but like." okay, there's the proof of what you just did.
Yeah.
Which I guess he could say an inmate always. But it's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like, what is this coming from all of these other people? Like, just to shame Red?
Where's this motivation and to watch her be shamed? And it was that scene was very difficult to watch.
And like Nikki said, I wrote this down.
It was very difficult.
Yeah. When she said, I genuinely would like to understand how a man can get this effed up.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, me too, because this really isn't connecting for me. So if we could get to that part, that would be great.
I love that. But I mean, you've seen, or we've all seen in so many shows, like someone cutting off someone's hair, because I mean, it's sad to say, but like hair for a woman, especially a lot of times, is a safety thing.
Well,
and
I just got
mean,
chills thinking
but especially when when that happens, and just the way that he even like cut her scalp. It's a true like sociopath. Like that's a true like just messed up.
It is.
Person.
It's and it's sort of the same thing with the religious things when people cut men's beards that do it for religious purposes. It's that same sort of mentality, and it's a vulnerability to be able to do that to someone, and sort of has that, you know, now they have the upper hand as far as the power there because they're doing this incredibly torturous, vulnerable thing with the hair cutting, and it's a very big thing, and it was very uncomfortable to watch.
And him forcing all of the women to watch because he's like,
as well.
Oh, you think she's so strong? Like now, what's she gonna? And then when he like cut her shirt, I guess because he was like, oh, we're gonna let them really see what you look like. I mean, he only cut like a little thing in it, thankfully, but
he's also obsessed with like reminding them and making sure they repeat that they know they're inmates. He did that when he was a younger guard, and now he's doing that now. Scene. It's like, okay, I'm pretty sure they know they're prisoners.
Right.
Like,
well, it's sort of, again, that exerting of power. And
right.
he feels this need to have the upper hand and everything.
Right.
And that's why I think it also kind of triggered him, again, going back to that cop scene of the TV thing, of where he felt totally emasculated and totally like his power was taken away from him. And he doesn't do well with that at all.
Right,
so it's always this power struggle to remind the men in the flashback scene and the women, like, he's the one, you know, it doesn't matter what they think, like it's his way or not.
Well, I think even in the flashback scene, he was like, he was just trying to establish some sort of power, because, you know, you would see that he was like nervous about it after he's like, how'd I do? But then it's like something in him
but then
just switched somewhere.
He switched during that time period though, with that relationship with Wes, and the point to where he becomes power hungry, and then you see it now with the women, and I'm hoping again that we'll get some connective tissue there into why he got so extreme.
Yeah.
But there are other things going on in this episode too that were quite important. You know, we see Suzanne going back to 9 because she's got a bigger role in this one, as far as not being on her meds. And, you know, I was watching her in the bathroom where she's
that
washing her face, and that, which by the way, that monologue was great.
It was incredible.
That's Emmy right there.
You see why she wins the Emmys every year. Cause it's like you're just we haven't seen too big of a presence from her this season. I mean, a little bit, but not much.
But that was like Emmy. I was like, I'm watching an Emmy performance right there, because that whole monologue, and, you know, the thing that's so great about her character is I have no idea what she's going to do next.
Yeah.
And I watched that and I was like, oh my God, is she going to hurt herself? What's she going to do? I'm like, bated breath, not knowing what she's going to do. And that's what's so great about her character and her acting. I had no idea what direction she was going in.
Right.
Yeah.
And that scene was so powerful too.
Right.
I was like, oh my God.
And she was fully like, because a lot of times her character gets very hard on herself. You know, she hits herself, she hurts herself.
Yes.
But that moment was so powerful for me because she was reminding herself how beautiful she is, how beautiful her skin is.
How her skin is beautiful.
That the white powder was wrong and all this stuff. And I just found that so like real and honest and beautiful versus like seeing her hurt herself or harm herself or hate how she is or whatever. And
yes, it was so powerful.
She had some of the best lines in this episode for sure.
That self-affirming moment was so great.
And when she finds Maureen, while we're talking about it, her face, I can't even look at her face and the infections and like everything that's coming out. Because it just reminds you that they're like, they need help. You know what I mean?
Serious help. And that was the thing that even she said that too. And it was so heartbreaking too. She's like, oh, the grown-ups need to help us now.
She's like, where are the grown-ups?
It's time for her to go to the grown-ups now, and you need help. And it was so like, oh my God.
I'm just so hoping that, I mean, because we've already essentially seen, you know, a very bad thing happen for Daya, obviously. I'm just hoping that nothing detrimental ends up happening to Maureen, because it was Suzanne that did it to her.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't
It
even
would.
want to
It
see it
would,
like go there,
because
she definitely seems like she's like getting sepsis right now.
Yeah.
Like she's
serious.
full on like
oozing.
circling the drain.
Oh yeah.
dying.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. It's scary, and she really needs help, and that's the sad thing right now. She's not getting that help in this environment. But it was amazing that Suzanne had the wherewithal to say no, you need help, even in her own state,
right?
And just being able to have those self-affirmations when I was like, I don't know what she's going to do now because she's not on her meds and she can't do anything. And it was crazy. But speaking of meds too, and we find out a little bit more about humps, which was not necessarily good.
Yeah.
For the overall big picture of what's going on with the negotiations.
Right.
And we have Leanne and Angie also trying to go back, and it was so gross with the finger.
Oh my god,
that was disgusting.
I did love the line though where the nurse was like, that guy was
very
like,
hunky nurse, by the way.
Yeah,
I like him.
He looks very good for all the craziness going on there. I was like, wow, he's maintaining pretty well.
Yeah, he definitely really stands out for
bad
just like
environment.
And the grooming department.
Yes, the grooming department is maintained quite well during this.
Yeah, and speaking of him, I loved when he was like, yeah, I can't reattach this. It's covered in Cheetos. That was hilarious.
Well, also, it was true. It was like the moment that she found it was just so gross and like disgusting. But the moment that she found it, I was like, it's already been there too long. It's disgusting.
Right. It's like petrified at this point.
It's so gross. I'm like, of course it's not going to happen. But then they go and now their great plan B is to get Stratman out.
Oh my god.
My god, which was like also like, oh my god, and his whole thing about, you want to test drive the finger
first. It's so
first?
weird how he like first jumped to that conclusion,
and
like that's what we should do.
Well, she kind of brought
smarter
it up,
that it delayed time, like I guess. I guess. Weird that his mind went there, obviously, but clearly their minds are messed up. So it's like,
that's true.
At least it's better to do that than have your finger sliced off right then. I guess.
Yeah, I know that was his thing, but at the same time, it was like she was all in it. She's like, oh yeah. Like, let's go test drive.
But that also is what worries me more, is because like, okay, great, they've taken the doctor away as soon as Maureen needs him.
Really needs real
help. Now he's in the poo, and it's like, okay, so we go back to this whole selfish motives versus like for the greater good.
Yeah, exactly, because now she's... But the thing I was going to ask you is, were we supposed to think that she never really had an orgasm or something? Was that...
Yeah, it's like she's never experienced that before.
But I think she did.
And then she did with him.
But I'm saying like, before then, she had never had that experience before.
Yeah, she was saying
right. Okay, so that's what we're supposed to... I wasn't sure how, like, if it was her, like, self,
Yeah,
gotcha.
She was like, oh, I don't know. And then, so she hadn't...
So she hadn't really ever...
Yeah.
Okay, because that was kind of a unique thing that I thought was interesting, that just kind of sort of just came out. And it was...
Right.
That moment and then brushed away, which...
Yeah.
Maybe we'll learn more about her character at some point, and knowing where she was at, and why she hadn't gotten to that point yet, or what was going on in her life. Because I know she was very religious and came from that very religious kind of.
She was like
background,
an Amish, right?
Like a Mennonite sort of thing. But it was very fascinating. Like, after all that she'd never explored that side of her before. So I thought it was kind of fascinating.
True.
And now she's kind of experiencing that in a way. Which we've seen throughout this whole riot season, and how people are sort of doing their self, discoveries. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of interesting to see that, because that's another person that you would never think of, and having this moment, which in a way was an important moment for her in the self-discovery period, which a lot of the other women were having different ways. Mm-hmm. And the other women starting their businesses, and they're kind of starting their own government, and things that they were doing, which were really, really cool. And in a way, it was like that sort of offhanded thing, which I thought was actually a more important thing that they kind of brushed over. But there was a lot going on in this episode.
Yeah, and Andrew's just sitting there watching, so good times.
Yeah, exactly. They had a lot that they had to cover, because we still had negotiations going on with Fig and Caputo.
Right.
And this is where we got the line for this episode, because Fig basically says to him that it's like, you having the reverse Midas touch, everything you touch turns to shit. Mm-hmm. And that's where they really started getting to this intense thing. And Black Cindy's like, oh man, they're gonna go at it, have sex
like sexually,
because it was getting really intense.
Well, he's avoiding what Fig is trying to say. He's trying to get around it, because all the girls are standing there. But it's true. Part of what she says, you are the warden. None of this stuff could have happened unless you ultimately signed off.
Like
which he did because he wanted this title and he wanted this power.
Exactly.
And even though he has been trying to help, which I think we can all agree that we genuinely see he would rather things be this way than this way.
And he gets played every time.
He does, and we've seen it through the past couple seasons that he's a good guy that makes, again, like a lot of these characters, not black and white, makes really bad decisions and doesn't necessarily do the right thing. But overall, even though he's a creep in a lot of ways when it comes to his relationships and sexual stuff, he's actually a good person that does mean well, but he gets sidetracked by these bad things. And Fig does bring it on, but you had that extra layer of that sexual tension that was sort of brought in. And again, seeing Tasty as a good leader reels it back in, like, all right, guys, you're getting way off track here. Let's get back to what we're here to talk about. And
she's the only one in the prison with any sense.
I know. Like, she is.
She really is.
Seriously. But then that's when like they almost roll humps in.
Yeah.
Or when Suzanne almost rolls humps in, and I mean
the whole point is he needs to be alive for these negotiations to go through.
And now he's not.
Now he's not, which is like, ooh, crap. This totally now brings it to a whole other level. And of course, it was convenient that Fig brings it up in that time period. Like, oh, well, where is he now?
Right.
Because we should see how he's doing.
Yeah, and it makes me sad because she is finally showing trust in Tasty and in Caputo, and they're like, no, trust us. Like, he's fine.
But then again,
whatever.
She didn't know at that moment, and she's. I mean. Yes, he had he had the stroke and everything, but she didn't know that he was dead.
Right, but at the same time, it's like she just gave them her trust, and she's probably going to find out soon that he's actually dead, so she won't know if they were lying or they didn't know yet or whatever.
No, that's true.
So, it's like at that point, you don't know who to trust.
Which I'm like, wow, how are these next 3 episodes going to go? And then, Gloria's trying to get the women to take naps so that she can get in and release the guards, and she almost is successful. She tries to get them go. She convinces them, like, hey, you guys need to get a nap. You've been out, 31 hours? And she basically says, medically, if you're awake for 31 hours, that's when you die.
Your body starts to shut down
and you'll die.
I was so happy that they caught her, though, because that just was not going to end well.
No.
Her single-handedly escorting them out, there's just no way.
She would have seen her son, maybe, but probably not. But I feel like the people would have, like, jumped. She would have ended up in the hospital 100%.
Poorly planned. Yeah. She can't just strut her stuff out there. And what does she expect them to just follow her like a little, ducklings?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's not going to happen.
So I just was very happy that they showed back up and shut that down.
I did too, because that was just.
I mean, I want her to see her son, but I also think there's a better way.
It was not going to work that way, exactly. And that whole plan was not going to work. So I'm glad they kind of shut that down quickly too. I agree with you, because that was driving me crazy. Because we knew that it wasn't going to end well.
Right.
And then, of course, Linda, with the whole thing, when Boo disappears, she's sort of out on her own, and she doesn't know what to do. She's lonely and scared, and then she's out in the poo, and all of a sudden she
puts herself in the poo.
She does, as self, exile.
Right.
And then she has that moment with Pennsatucky, and Pennsatucky's singing the Big Red theme, and I was kind of singing along to it too when she started doing it. It kind of brought me back. I was like, God, they need to bring back that theme again, because it was really good.
Really catchy.
And they were singing, and then once Pennsatucky discovers it's her, then that's the end of their friendship.
And that conversation, though, like before that happened, was important, though, because Linda kind of realized how shitty it is in there. And, like the line when Pennsatucky says, people are going to leave here worse than they came, and that sort of situation. And Linda's like, I'm so sorry. Like, because she has such a huge part in that.
She did. And it goes back to her being all about the numbers and the budgets and the bottom line, and treating these women like they're just ahead.
Yeah.
As we talk about when you're working in corporate world, it's like, oh, how many heads do we have for these, different positions, and we need to cut,
right,
50
not actually
heads,
considering that they're human,
that they're actually human beings, and they have their own things, and especially when we're talking about something like a prison and not giving them their basic needs and everything else. Again, I think it's helping us see, and I talked about this last week. There was a whole article in the LA Times about how everyone should go in an opinion piece, should go into prison once every 10 years, sort of like jury duty, to kind of experience what it's like in the inside, so that people would be more sympathetic to the plight that people go through. I thought it was brilliant, and it's so well timed to this particular season with what these women are going through.
Right.
At least she's actually like learning something, because we're seeing all of these things that are potentially going to make a lot of stuff go awry. But Linda is in a position where maybe she could actually do something. So for all the like crap she's done, and for how like terrible she's been, maybe she actually is learning something.
And the thing is too, is like, in a weird way, I think like she's gonna have a bigger say in how this is all resolved because she's sort of seeing it now from the inside, which basically goes back to that opinion piece.
Yeah, maybe she can come through and then,
it's like being from the inside, be able to say, this is how it really is in there, and we do need to take care of these women, and we're not doing that the way we can, and we know budgetarily we can handle them because we've cut it 20% from the federal government, and the CEO, has a shit ton of money, millions of dollars, and things like that.
And bonuses.
And things like that. Okay, before we get to that final scene with the bunker girls and all that stuff, was there any other things that we missed? Because this is such a big episode.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, just that last scene.
Frida to the rescue, baby.
Yeah. Oh my God. We don't normally do sort of any thoughts of like, what are we gonna see, because we haven't watched, and I know a lot of people out there, we really have not watched the last 3 episodes. No. So a lot of times we don't do theories. But quickly, was there anything that you think what happened to him? Is this, what happened to Piscatella?
Oh, I mean, she obviously found something to make him fall asleep, with her little arrows. I don't know what it was, but
well, do we think he's dead?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't think he's dead.
I don't think so either.
I don't think he's dead.
Because she basically said, "Devil's breath" or whatever. That
she says something about him being knocked out.
Right. It was sort of like the tranquilizer that you give a bear.
Yeah.
Basically.
I assume he's going to become part of the hostage situation. They're going to use him to.
I cannot wait to see, because this was again very convenient but perfect way to lure him in.
Yeah.
And they got him in, and then she took the blow dart out and claimed it was devil's breath, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
I mean, and even though Alex has a broken arm and Red's head's messed up now, but I feel like them having him in their custody is a huge thing.
Yeah,
huge.
The whole control, the whole dynamic has now shifted, and I cannot wait. These last 3 episodes are going to be epic, and next week we will be back with episodes 11 and 12. We are getting close, the penultimate episode.
I'm so excited.
Penultimate episodes before we get to the finale in 2 weeks. So until next week, where can they find you guys?
Y'all can find me everywhere at April Whisenhant.
And you can find me at Sterling Cates.
All right, and you guys can find me at sman80, that's sman80, and you can follow us on social media, #OITNBABTV, and we will be back next Tuesday with episodes 11 and 12 of Season 5, Orange is the New Black. We're getting there.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.